welcome to the This Is Metal show. As you guys can notice, my regular co-host Tom Collier is off today. Tom is attending a KK's pre-show, so I hope he enjoys the show, and we'll talk all about that when Tom returns. Our guest today is the band Sons of Silver, and we got two members. Now we got the lead singer. Pete, can you please say your name? Because I don't want to mess it up. There you go.
Argyropoulos, Peter Argyropoulos.
And of course, we got the bass player, Adam Kury. Now, some of you may know Adam. He's involved with several projects. Probably the one you'll know the most about is Candlebox, which before we went on there, Adam was sharing me they're on their farewell tour. So look out for that. He's also involved in another great band, put out a great debut album, Angels in Vain. So, but we're talking about Sons of Silver Day. So, Pete, could you start us off? Tell them how the band first got together. How long have you guys been together as a band?
As Sons of Silver, about 4 years now, a little over 4 years. Yeah, but we started out actually as a singer-songwriter act, and the band was our current lineup too was backing me up, and that was for 2-3 years before that. But as we started working together as the singer-songwriter act, we started writing together and collaborating so much that the sound completely changed, turned into a rock and roll band, and that's how we end up where we are. And the band was basically put together by Adam and I, but mostly by Adam. I called him up because we've been working together on different projects for a number of years. And I said, hey, can you help me put together a band? He brought pretty much everyone in, or one person after another, and that's it. So thanks.
Now let's talk about the current single, because Tell Me This. I understand that is based off of like the intro riff. It kind of gave you guys idea for the song. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I listened to the song and I watched the video, and it's all, I don't want to say you guys, it sounds punkish, but it's got a little bit of a punk element, a little bit of an edge. Yeah. I don't know that I'd call you guys metal, but there's definitely an edge to the music.
Yeah, there's definitely a punk quality to it, and that's a strong taste in pretty much all of us in the band. But it started out, the intro riff was just kind of one of those noodles that I had, guitar jams, practicing with myself that I was doing in front of the TV, and I brought it to the band, and we all took it and ran with it from there. And it was one of those songs, and Adam can describe even in more detail, that we had to kick around a few times. So we just weren't quite getting it right, and we'd work on it for a few hours, shelve it, bring it back a month later, and finally it happened. And probably one of the things that really pushed it over the top, one of the people is our current drummer and our new drummer at the time, Mark Slutsky. He came in the band, and he loves punk rock. He's from New York, and he's always thinking, man, if I could have grown up in the CBGB days, that would have been my thing, my heyday. So wow. He brought that essence, which you pointed out, the punk quality, and that really helped get the energy over the top.
Yeah, I mean, I could see you guys even described as modern rock or alternative. It's got a little bit of all that,
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's definitely some classic tones to it, or sentiment to that song, as well as most of our songs. But
the Clash.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there you go. It's funny. I have like two places I set up in my house, and this is my favorite one, but it also happens to be our son's playroom. Oh, so wow. But today he's 3 years old. He's taking a nap right now, so I'm in here. But yeah, exactly. Here you go.
So let me ask you, Adam, when you and Pete first hooked up, it seems like you guys have a real chemistry. Was that immediate? Did you feel that right away?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've worked together for years now. We started, the way we first met was Peter had a project he was working, needed a rhythm section. And long story short, myself and a drummer friend got recommended to be his session guy. And we hit it off from pretty much from the get-go, and we just kept writing music and doing things. We've kind of been in projects that have kind of come and gone, but this one feels like we got something really happening here. Like over the years, it's evolved, and we've gotten a little more focused with it. And okay. Yeah, I mean, and we have all those influences, the punk, the classic rock. There's some metal stuff in there. There's even, if you dig in far enough, there's probably even some funk and jazz. And I mean, that's the whole thing, is you absorb everything, and we're not trying to create a specific genre or sound when we do. We just go with things. Yeah, I dig that. And
Yeah.
if we like it, it makes it in.
It sounds good. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, you even look at Def Leppard. They're definitely a hard rock band. They lean a little more being a pop band these days. But if you go back to the first two Def Leppard albums, they were much more of a metal
Sure.
band. But you listen, like you're saying, it's also one of those bands that there's a little something for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, for sure. Yeah.
Yes, especially those early records to me, Def Leppard records were amazing.
Yeah.
And and frankly, I'm not really much of a metal guy or even a hard rock guy.
Yeah.
But those records are amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and that was that blend. That was just like, I mean, honestly, I think even that new wave of British heavy metal they came out with, even to a degree, Iron Maiden, like all these bands that came out that were considered to be metal, so to speak.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
really, the only one that was really doing that from that group, and they were a little bit older, was Judas Priest.
Yeah.
And then metal as we know it now didn't really, in my mind, happen until like you got the Metallicas and Megadeth. But really back then, to me, that was just like hard edge classic rock on steroids is all it was.
Yeah,
I mean, hell, Iron Maiden was punk.
Yeah, I was going to say that because even if you go back to Iron Maiden, like the first two albums before Bruce Dickinson was ever in the band, they were much more influenced by the punk bands in England.
100%.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw it to my co-host, Leithal-X, because I know he must have a few questions for you guys.
No,
How
well,
you doing?
welcome, guys, and
Thank you.
pleasure to talk to you guys. I was doing a little bit of reading, and I saw you threw a little piece of the lyric in, and it's kind of a joke, I think, in the song. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well,
Just kind of make it a little bit more interesting.
fire it at me. Let me know what it is. The lyric.
It has the ass on the lips, I think.
Yes. Do you? It's funny. Do you recognize my ass on your lips? That line, yeah. I've had to answer that. I've had to answer that one a few times now. In fact, I think someone just made a comment earlier today on Facebook. I'm not Facebook, on YouTube, asking, "Wait a minute, did I get this lyric right?" Anyway, yeah. This song was a bit of a lyrical struggle lyrically. I had an intention to make it a bit of a political rant, and I kept trying. It wasn't working. And I had all these lines, or at least images in my head, or phrases that were cool, but they sounded cool within themselves, but not as a collective. So I finally just settled on letting it be what it seemed to want to be, which is a bit of a diatribe against an ex, a sort of a crazy ex who's not necessarily stalking you, but just happens to end up in your future, and you're like faced with, wow, I'm glad I dodged that bullet. But frankly, there's nothing reality based, or at least personal based in the song.
You ever have that fear of if you were to put out a political statement or state your political belief or something, you ever have fear of people coming online and giving you all this backlash? Or I think when you're influenced by punk, it's just kind of the real punk thing to do is just kind of speak your mind and not worry about what everybody else thinks.
Well, that's kind of what we do. I mean, we speak our minds. Even in a number of our songs have political undertones, or just straight up political oriented songs, but they're not really taking a side. They're just sort of just addressing the nature of how we often fight with each other for unnecessary reasons. It's just like wanted combat as opposed to necessary combat. But back to your question, Leithal-X, that line. So I was just throwing out different ideas of ways to wrap up the chorus line, and or the chorus itself, and that just sort of popped into my head is not really a joke. It's just something that was really going over the top, and so I marked it down as a few different options, and I sang it for everyone, in particular actually for Brina, our keyboardist and engineer, who also happens to be my wife, and Kevin Holland, our guitarist, who were both in the studio that day. And I sort of, just sort of mumbled it out there, and they're like, wait, what was that? What was that? And I said, okay, give me another take. And I did it again. And they go, that's the one that should stick. So then obviously we show it to Adam and Mark, our drummer, and a couple other folks in our team, and say, what do you think? Because there's a crass element to it. And that's cool. That can be cool, but sometimes it can be misinterpreted. So you do need to sort of weigh things out, because frankly, if it was left up to me most of the time, I'd probably just throw all the stuff on the wall and definitely get some people, you know, dinging me. Let's just put it that way.
So
But
Pete, yeah,
we have
It makes you pay attention.
yeah. You mentioned you were influenced by a lot of the punk bands back in the day, but is there a singer or two that really kind of influenced you?
I would say when I was a kid, you know, little kid growing up, my parents, you know, played a lot of Beatles stuff. You know, this was after they had broken up, but they played a lot of Beatles stuff. So John Lennon really stuck in, and I think, frankly, I even used to try to sing like him. But as I got older, you know, Bruce Springsteen had his influences. My parents took me, you know, some Bruce Springsteen shows, but probably the biggest influence would be Bono of U2.
Wow, you know,
Not
all those cats you mentioned, you know, the one thing they all have in common besides talent is all great songwriters, and so I can kind of see that in your music.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
If I could somehow step even near those shoes, or we could step near those shoes, I think we'd all be very happy.
But you know, uniquely, what I got to praise you guys on is a lot of times when you listen to a band for the first time, you're trying to think, who does this band remind me of? And I can honestly say that uniquely, you guys got your own sound. I can't sit here and say, you know, you sound like the Beatles or you sound like, you know, the a second coming of the Sex Pistols or whatever. You really got your own unique sound, and that's hard to do.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and it's very, very eclectic. You know, and I think that's what he's trying to say too. Is that
Yeah.
when I listened to it, I was like, wait a minute, I was doing the same thing. What does
Yeah.
this sound like? And I was like, I couldn't put my finger on it, but it had that punk edge, and I kind of agreed with him when I heard that. So I guess we were on the same page.
It's got that it's just got that fresh kind of sound because it doesn't sound like every other band out there. And that's hard to do, you know.
Well, thank you. You know, if I may continue speaking over you, Adam, sorry.
You're good.
You know, for us, we're just doing our thing, and we're
Sure.
bringing in, as Adam started to hint at before, bringing in all our influences. And the way we work is very, let's just say this: there's usually a strong leader to the band as far as really defining how that band moves forward, how it works. And we're not like that at all. Yes, I'm the lead singer, and yes, I'm the leader in the business area outside the band. But when it comes to making the music and crafting the songs in particular, we all have our own spaces and our own lanes, and we kind of, it's not that we stay out of each other's lane, but we really let whomever, you know, whatever their duty is, playing bass for Adam, playing, you know, rhythm guitar and singing lead for me, we let each other do our things, and we really listen to each other and key off of each other, and then trade ideas within that to nudge each other along forward, but as well as closer together. And so I think that by nature, that because it's not thought about, it just lends itself to its own sound. And then add to that is that my voice, I'm a baritone, if not a bass.
Yeah.
So you just don't hear many rock guys doing that. And so that helps the sound too. But it's what we do, and we don't think about it. You know, our motto is thinking leads to stinking. Seriously.
Yeah. And so Adam, let me ask, who are some of your bass heroes? Because you know, a lot of times you know, the bass player is kind of the secret ingredient, the secret weapon. You look at somebody like Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. A lot of people just thought he was just, you know, plugging his bass on all those great Ozzy era albums, but come to find out, he was the guy writing all the lyrics, not Ozzy.
Yeah, and what a phenomenal bass player too. Honestly, that was amazing that you threw that one out, because when I was learning the first album, I tried to learn to be able to play every song on it was Paranoid
Oh wow!
as a
Yeah.
kid, because I was
Really?
drawn to it. You know, that record stood out so well for me, and his lines jumped out. There were cool things to play. I really loved it. Yeah, he was definitely blues influenced, a lot of the pentatonic scales, but I loved that he would play a riff and he would go off and he would start the riff, but he maybe put like harmony notes against what Tony was doing. I mean, they were a three-piece, so when you do
Sure.
things like that, you get a thicker sound. So that was really caught on me. But you know, I was off to the races. I mean, you know, same thing. McCartney and the Beatles was
Sure.
great. You know, I loved obviously Geddy Lee at some point as a bass player. You have to get into Geddy Lee. You know, and Steve Harris from Maiden. To me, he did a lot of the same colorings and shapes as Geezer, very different style, but
Yeah,
it related to me.
and they're also similar in the fact that if you look at any of the credits on any Iron Maiden, you know, a lot of times Steve Harris is a principal, you know, songwriter.
Oh
And so,
yeah. Yeah, he was the main guy for them and everything. And I'm not sure if it necessarily has to do with the writing per se,
No,
but it just, I think that those guys were so talented in their playing that they were able to also write really well. They just really knew their craft well.
but again, I bring those guys up not just because of their ability to write and play the bass, but those are kind of the guys that influenced everybody. You know, that's why even
100%.
you mentioned Paul McCartney, and how could you, if you're a bass player, how could you not be influenced by the guy? I mean, look at his songwriting ability. He's a lead singer. He's a bass player. Does it all. I mean,
Yeah.
he's over 80 years old. He's still out there getting up on stage and
Yeah.
Yeah.
But any of these guys, like I say, they were very multi-talented. But if you just look at just their bass playing alone, there was a lot to it, and they did a lot of incredible lines and cool stuff. And you know, you with each style of band, you kind of lean yourself towards certain things, and it wasn't just that those guys are flashy, but it worked for the music. You know, where you get somebody like Cliff Williams for AC/DC, who I think is a genius on the bass as well, and because it's so subtle. He doesn't move all the time, but when he does make a move with it, it's really important and pushes the song along. It's actually harder to be really effective with a very simple song structure and just driving eights and knowing when the subtle moves are, rather than say being like a Geezer Butler and walking all over the place, because you've kind of got free range.
And it's interesting you bring up Cliff Williams, a very underrated player. I agree. For a simple fact too, I think anybody that saw AC/DC back in the day, you know, you couldn't help but have your eyes on Angus and Malcolm, you know.
Of course. Well, they were the show.
Yeah.
And that was the thing is that band worked so well because, you know, between Cliff and Phil, that rhythm section was just unbelievable. It was so rock solid. It wasn't flashy, but that was the point. They weren't supposed to be flashy because you had Angus up there doing his thing.
Yeah, and then even one last time you take a look at Geezer Butler, like I heard him talk about, you know, when Ozzy left the band and they got Dio, he's talked over years about the fact, yeah, I was writing the songs on, you know, those Ozzy era albums, but when you get a guy like Ronnie James Dio joining the band and he writes the way he does,
yeah,
I was willing to step aside, you know.
For sure. And I've read some things. He said he was almost kind of relieved in a way.
Yeah.
I think the pressure of writing all those lyrics was starting to wear on him after 10 years.
Yeah, Adam. Get out here, buddy.
Well, that's it. He gave it over to the singer. So there you go.
Oh, jeez. What am I saying?
So do you guys, when you record, are you typically like, you have a home, does everybody have their own home studio? Do you record your parts separately? How do you guys do it?
We have a studio. In particular, Brian and I have a professional studio, and it's near our home here in Los Angeles, and we're all here in Los Angeles. So no, we assemble there, and it's just the five of us. Brian is our engineer as well as a keyboardist.
All in-house. That's cool. Yeah.
I mean, literally, we have never had another soul in the studio when we're recording, other than our son and a babysitter. That's it.
Now, was that kind of I mean, I know it also saves on the finances but, were you guys always kind of against having an outside producer? Because I imagine bringing an outside producer, you got the good and the bad. I mean, in the sense that they might come and try to change the sound of a band, band sound how they want it to sound like.
For sure. You know, I think that it was mostly by design, because I think we felt like we kind of knew what we were trying to do. So we felt who better than to judge what we're creating other than us, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing is, and I've always felt, at least from my perspective, is you have to be careful, because if you get a really good producer, if he's very heavy-handed and your record comes through and it's really good and everybody loves it, now you're in a dilemma, because you're going to have to try and go back to that person. And then it's kind of more of seen that way. I mean, Def Leppard was a great example. They had Mutt Lange, who controlled everything. It was difficult for them when they stopped working with him to get back to those sounds. I mean, they watched him for years and several records, but you know, it's nice because we can do it all ourselves and we never have to worry about that.
Yeah. And Pete, what's it like to be in a band with your wife?
It's great most of the time. I mean, no, seriously, there are definitely challenging moments, because we work together. We now have a kid together, and and then we come home and we're together and deal with home life. And our home life is no different than anyone else's. You know,
if you don't mind me asking, how old is your kid? I was asking because I was curious if
He just turned 3. He turned
Okay.
3 in
So I
January.
don't imagine he's seen you play out live or anything like
He
that.
has.
Oh, yeah.
He has. We just did a show last week or a week and a half ago in Vegas, an industry showcase, and we all flew out, and he flew out with us, and we had a great time. We had a moment with him because he wanted to go on the stage. So after sound check and before doors, or actually no, it was even after doors. We let him go on the stage, and he was jumping off the stage. Say loosely because I was helping him down, and
Wow.
then obviously the owners of the club weren't too thrilled about that.
Yeah.
We had to tear him off the stage, but the hard part came when he wasn't allowed to go on stage with us when we performed. He was not.
I think there's a song. I think there's a song in that story. And funny thing about that, I was curious if if you've ever written a song about your wife, and maybe she didn't realize at first it was about her. Maybe she did.
No, I stay away from that. I'm wise and experienced on that one. Unless it's a beautiful love song. No, I'll say this though. There are in all our conversations together, not just mine, but also in the band, probably 80% of what we talk about, or I should say 80% of our lyrics is pulled from our conversations together and our feelings. So much of what is written, while it comes from my hand, it's a collective, or at least borrowed from our community, so to speak.
And I got to ask you guys, because when I heard the name Sons of Silver, I thought, man, that's a cool sounding name. Let's talk about that, because I know one of the hardest things is to come up with the band name.
It's the translation of my last name, Argyropoulos.
Wow! How did you figure that out? Wow!
Well, it was my brother's idea, and we actually, before we became Sons of Silver, we were Pete RG, RG short for Argyropoulos, and we were, first of all, I never liked that name. It's just somehow something I just started with on a whim.
That's why I had you introduce yourself, because I hate to mispronounce people's names.
Yeah, well, don't worry about it. I've heard it all. I even jumble through it sometimes, but nonetheless, we were looking for a backing band name, so it was Pete RG and XYZ, and my brother suggested Sons of Silver. Knowing that it was the translation of our family name, and I mentioned it to the guys, including Adam, and everyone was like, "I dig that." So we were throwing that idea around, and then fast forward a few months, and was like, you know what, we're a different band, we're a different sound. We're going to leave the singer-songwriter thing behind. Let's have a new name, and let's use Sons of Silver. And actually, I think we were doing a run of shows in Great Britain, and we have nights off, and Brina and I, for instance, would be at a British pub. I remember we did this a few times, and we started talking to people, and they'd be like, "So what are you here for?" And we'd say, "We're in a band, we're playing some shows." And like, "What's the name of your band?" And a couple times we went, Sons of Silver, and we'd A/B that with Pete RG, and every time they're like, "Oh, I like that." So that's where we landed, where we are now.
Yeah, Sons of Silver it just kind of rolls off the tongue. I mean, even it sounds a lot better even than Sons of Gold. I don't know why, it just has a ring to it.
It does. It does roll off the tongue nicely, and we were very fortunate that in today's world, you got to think about how a song is found, or I'm sorry, how a name is found on the internet. When you do a search on Google or something, and fortunately, it was available everywhere except for Instagram. That's the only place we have to use Sons of Silver Band.
Wow. And did you guys, when you were over in Europe, did you find that you got a pretty good reaction over there?
I think so. How about you, Evan?
Yeah, we had a blast over there. I mean, honestly, we were touring and doing things, and the pandemic just kind of stuck a fork in that for a while. So that's why we ended up with an extra EP, and now this new album coming out is we got busy because we couldn't do anything.
You guys have a release date for the new album coming out?
No, it's summer of 2024. Yes, this summer it'll be coming out. We're not exactly sure because we have a number of songs on here that us as well as our label
first, right?
Yeah, and we're going to really roll with that. I mean, look, as Adam started to mention, we got kind of we got slowed down by the pandemic and the lockdown.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, everyone did. We had actually recorded our debut EP, Doomsday Noises, which was released in June of 2020. We had recorded it that previous year, and we had just started touring some of those songs. And you know, the tracks went out to radio, and we started charting, but we couldn't go out to support them. And then by 2022, when we released our second EP, Ordinary Sex Appeal, you know, even though the doors of touring had opened back up, there was a glut of especially big name artists, or at least tours that had been postponed that needed to clear out. So that's why we didn't really, you know, support that EP as far as on the road either. But finally, we have the opportunity now to go out on the road and support not only this LP, but, you know, to also perform really for the first time the previous EPs.
The bigger set list, that's for sure, once you're able to start doing some headlining.
We really do. It's actually, you know, sometimes it's a little daunting.
Yeah. Well, I can't believe, guys, it's almost time to wrap this up. Before we do, Leithal-X, do you have any further questions for the guys?
No, I haven't taken it in. I think we've kind of covered quite a bit of stuff.
Well, Pete and Adam, I want to thank you guys for coming on the This Is Metal show. And like I said at the top interview, you guys are welcome back anytime, because you're one of those great new bands that we really support, and we love to do what we can to spread the word about great new bands like you. So let's make a point to keep in touch, and I'll let you guys know when this interview posts, but it'll probably be about 2 weeks or so from now. Okay.
That'd be great. Jay, thank you, man. We'll come back anytime. Just, you know, hit up Jody, you know, publicist Dana. And hey, if I may also, we love to send you guys some tees, some you know, covers of our tees with covers of our latest single. So if you
sure, I'll send you the address where you can do that. Okay. And
and your sizes as well, please.
Okay. Thanks so much, Pete and Adam. We'll be in touch. And like you said, I want to give a shout out to Jody's, because she always sends us so many great bands to interview.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Later.